Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something that's all about one thing: speed. We're talking about rapid application development, or as pretty much everyone calls it, RAD.
But before we get into the solution, let's talk about the problem. I want you to think about a project you've been on. It starts with all this excitement, right? Big promises, lots of energy. And then somewhere along the way, everything just grinds to a halt. The deadlines slip, the budget explodes, and you're just left thinking, there has to be a better way to do this.
Well, that whole downward spiral, it has a name. It's the project trap. It's this collection of classic mistakes that honestly almost guarantee a project will turn from something exciting into a total nightmare. So, what's the recipe for this particular disaster?
Okay, let's break it down. It almost always starts with friction. You've got the customers on one side and the developers on the other, and it's like they're not even speaking the same language. Then you get to my personal favorite mistake. The project is late. So what's the solution? Just throw more people at it. Yeah, spoiler, that basically never works. In fact, it usually makes things worse. All of this just snowballs, you know? The process gets messy, the team's motivation just hits the floor, and pretty soon, you've got a surefire recipe for failure.
So it was right out of the ashes of all these slow, clunky, failing projects that a totally different way of thinking was born. A philosophy that wasn't about rigid 5-year plans, but about speed, about being flexible, and about actually working together. And that, my friends, is RAD.
Now, what I really love about this definition is that one little word, adaptation. See, RAD isn't about just throwing out everything we knew about software development. It's not total chaos. It's about taking those old traditional models and strapping a rocket engine to them. It's about turbocharging the process. The big question is, how?
And here it is, the secret sauce, the core idea that makes the whole thing work: component-based construction. Forget building everything from scratch, brick by painful brick. The idea here is to assemble your application from parts you already have, things that are pre-built and reusable.
And I absolutely love this analogy because it just clicks. The old way? That's like being a sculptor with a massive block of marble. It's slow, it's incredibly rigid, and if you make one wrong move, crack, the whole thing could be ruined. But the RAD way, that's like having an infinite box of Lego bricks. It's fast, it's flexible, you can snap pieces together, take them apart, try something new, and this is the killer part. The customer gets to play with the Legos with you. They're not waiting a year for the big reveal of your marble statue. They're seeing progress every single day.
Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, this sounds great, but doesn't it just turn into complete chaos? You know, moving that fast, how do you keep things from flying off the rails? Well, believe it or not, there's a method to the madness. There's a playbook, and we're about to walk through it.
The easiest way to think about the formal phases is like planning a road trip. Seriously. First up, business modeling. That's just figuring out your destination. Where are we even going? Next, data modeling. All right, what kind of car do we need? What do we need to pack? Then comes process modeling. This is your GPS, your turn-by-turn directions to get there. Then, and only then, do you get to application generation, which is, actually starting the car and driving. And at the end, testing and turnover. That's you checking the tire pressure, making sure everything's good to go, and handing the keys over.
But here's the thing that really separates RAD from everything that came before it. It is not about pages and pages of documents. It's about a demonstration. A working model, a prototype, is the beating heart of this entire process, something a user can actually touch, click, and play with. This isn't a surprise party at the end of the project, it's a constant conversation that starts on day one.
So, if you strip away all that road trip planning, all the formal phases, what are you left with? You're left with the real engine of RAD, and it's this incredibly simple but unbelievably powerful loop.
It's this simple. You build a prototype, you show it to the user, you get their feedback, then you do it again. Build, show, get feedback, repeat. That's it. That is the core loop. And it's this relentless cycle of refining and improving that makes sure you end up with a product people actually want, not just the product they thought they wanted a year ago.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds amazing, right? Fast, flexible, happy customers. What's the catch? Well, like any powerful tool, RAD isn't a silver bullet. It's not a magic wand you can just wave at every single project. It has some serious strengths, for sure, but it also has limitations. There's a price for all that speed.
So let's look at the trade-offs. The advantages are pretty obvious, right? You get your product to market way faster. Your team is more productive because they're reusing stuff, and the customer is way happier because they're part of the process. But look at the other side of the coin,
This whole thing only works if you have a team of really, really skilled developers. And just as important, you need a customer who is committed, I mean really committed, to giving you constant feedback. This isn't a see you in 6 months kind of relationship. It's also not great for gigantic, sprawling projects. And yeah, if you're not careful, that focus on speed can sometimes mean quality takes a hit.
So that leads us to the big practical takeaway here. Knowing all of this, the good and the bad, when should you actually pull RAD out of your toolbox? It's for sure not for every job, but when the situation is right, man, it is the perfect tool.
All right, here's your checklist. Run through this before you even think about going RAD. First question, can you break this project up into smaller, modular pieces? You know, like our Legos. Second, is your objective crystal clear, and is your timeline short? We're talking like 2 or 3 months, not 2 or 3 years. And finally, and this is probably the most important one, do you have the right people on board? That means a team of pros who know what they're doing and users who are genuinely excited and available to give you feedback constantly. If you can tick all those boxes, then yeah, RAD could be an absolute game changer for you.
So, in the end, the entire philosophy of RAD really boils down to one single provocative question. In a world that moves as fast as ours does, is a product that's good enough and in your hands right now better than one that's perfect but shows up a year late? It's this fundamental trade-off, really, between progress and perfection, and that's something every single one of us has to think about. Thanks for tuning in.